Humanity goes about its usual life while, in the White House, important political issues are being resolved. Beyond its walls, ordinary people make plans for tomorrow, unaware of the changes that await them. But one single morning changes everything. For reasons unknown, all carriers of the Y chromosome in the city suddenly die. In other words, every male living creature, from animals and birds to men, perishes, including the president of the country. The only surviving males are a young would-be magician with no real talent named Yoro Brown and his pet monkey, Capucina Ererson. In case of emergency, Regina Oliver would assume the presidency. However, at the moment of catastrophe, she was abroad, and no word has been heard from her since. Naturally, the void of leadership has dire consequences. Riots break out in the city as panic-stricken women begin destroying everything around them, not knowing how to go on living. Tension mounts inside the White House as staff realize that in 2 weeks they will be entirely trapped. Coal and clean water supplies will run out. Food will soon be gone. Animals can no longer reproduce, and building sufficient reserves in time is simply impossible. And this isn't just about one city. It will affect the entire world. Senator Jennifer Brown takes charge of leadership. Soon she is approached by Agent Sarah Bergen, a member of the President's Secret Task Force 355. Sarah explains she was sent here because of a real threat, but had no time for detailed instructions on her new mission. Meanwhile, Yoro remains holed up in his apartment to avoid becoming the target of desperate women. But as supplies begin to dwindle, he decides to leave a note for his girlfriend and venture out to assess the situation. At the same time, Senator Brown sends Sarah on a mission to find her daughter, Hiro, who has made no contact since the disaster. But Yoro is in no hurry to hide in a safe place. He travels instead to a refugee center to help those in need, including the wife of his deceased lover. After that, Yoro returns to the hideout where his friends are gathered. At first glance, it seems there are still some surviving men in the city, but it quickly becomes clear these men were born in female bodies and have transitioned via hormone therapy. Therefore, the mysterious plague had no effect on them. In New York City, evacuation begins, and heavy military vehicles patrol the streets. Yoro must hide to avoid capture by the military, yet he manages to slip into a local bar to leave another message for his girlfriend, still hopeful she is alive and will find her way home upon seeing his autograph. Yoro gets away unnoticed, but this time things don't go as planned. Capucina escapes, forcing Yoro to chase him. The restless monkey descends into a flooded subway and vanishes into the filthy water, filled with corpses of the dead. Fighting his disgust, Yoro decides to follow him, unwilling to lose his only friend. For a moment, he thinks he sees another living man nearby, but when he shines his flashlight, there's nothing but dirty water. After emerging from the water, Yoro slips into a clothing store to change, but doesn't remain hidden. Shopkeepers catch sight of the naked stranger and freeze in shock. One woman suggests capturing him and turning him over to the authorities for a hefty reward, but ultimately, feeling pity, they let Yoro go and give him a clean outfit. The stress Yoro has endured almost drives him mad. Watching videos on his phone, he remembers the day Iran came into his life, and upon hearing his friend's voice, the little monkey emerges from hiding. The pair return home and feel safe there, until Yoro hears the door open. Realizing he was mistaken about being alone, he must defend himself. Armed with a guitar and hiding around a corner, he has no chance to strike. Sarah proves faster and stronger, disarms Yoro, and after a few hours turns him over to his mother, Senator Brown. The pilots who brought Yoro to the White House are locked up. Sarah explains they need rest after a long flight, but everyone understands the real reason. No one must learn that the new president's son has survived, or suspicions of conspiracy could spark even greater chaos. Yoro himself is not happy about the situation. After resting briefly from all that has happened, he decides to look around, nearly walking into disaster. In an abandoned office, he is discovered by Mara, the widow of the late president. Jennifer and Sarah arrive just in time and manage to make it look as if Mara is suffering a mental collapse. Meanwhile, Yoro manages to hide, but the threat looming over the conspirators grows, and Sarah insists that the boy must be moved out of the White House. The late president's daughter tries to learn exactly what her mother saw that night. Jennifer assures the girl it was nothing more than a hallucination, but Kimberly suspects President Brown is lying. Jennifer Brown instructs her aides to find a geneticist who can examine Yoro and discover what happened on the planet and why he and Capacina survived. The president plans to bring specialists to the White House, but Sarah remains firm. It's far too dangerous and they must get Yoro out of the city. The agent is ready to undertake this risky mission, but must do so as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, in Israel, an injured woman regains consciousness and, learning that all the men on Earth have died, declares she must now claim the presidency of the United States. Nora Brady, a former presidential advisor, is forced to wander with her young daughter Mackenzie after losing her husband and sons and being left without means to survive. Nora struggles to pull herself together, but ultimately resolves to fight to save herself and her daughter. News arrives at the White House that Regina Oliver, the leading presidential candidate, is alive. This causes a split among the staff. Some remain loyal to Jennifer Brown, others side with Regina Oliver. Given the situation, Jennifer has no choice but to agree with Sarah and allow her son to be transferred somewhere safer. Sarah recruits the pilots who previously transported Yoro, motivating them with heroic stars and promises of eternal glory if they succeed. The only way to smuggle Yoro out of the building in secret is in a vehicle loaded with corpses. The boy tries to refuse and think of another plan, but Sarah is resolute. They cannot risk anything, and he will have to endure it. The agent succeeds in smuggling Yoro out and transfers him to a helicopter. She intends to pilot it herself. A second helicopter, carrying exclusively women, flies ahead as a decoy. However, as soon as the helicopters gain altitude and disappear from sight, the escort chopper loses control and explodes in a fiery rain of debris. The sight horrifies Yoro, but Sarah remains calm, knowing that was the price for the pilot's silence. After several hours of flight, Sarah and Yoro land in a forest for a brief rest. The agent, unable to bear the smell, asks the boy to strip. After traveling with corpses, he stinks terribly, and it would be better to wash his clothes before continuing. Meanwhile, Yoro's sister, Jiro, sets out to find a safe place accompanied by her friend, a trans man. Along the way, they stop at a looted store hoping to find food, but instead encounter Nora and Mackenzie, frightened. Examining the girl's leg, Jiro notes a severe infected wound and asks Nora's permission to administer first aid so they can keep moving. Back in the forest, Sarah and Yoro's camp is attacked by a band of savage looters. Sarah tries to distract and calm them, but to avoid any risk, Yoro puts on a mask and brandishes a stick to scare the women away. Fearing they might ruin her plan, the unexpected guests depart, but Sarah and Yoro decide not to stay. They head for the nearest town, where they trade a helicopter generator and a pair of grenades for a motorcycle. While Sarah inspects and tunes the bike, Yoro, forgetting all safety rules, runs into a deserted square, convinced he saw his girlfriend Bet among the crowd. This foolish act leads him into a trap. He is surrounded by female police officers who rip off his mask and discover his secret. Sarah must intervene to protect her companion. After fighting the officers, she manages to drag Yoro away. But as soon as they escape, she halts the bike to scold him and remind him of the mission's importance, a mission he nearly sabotaged. Meanwhile, Jiro, her friend, and their new companions find refuge for the night in an abandoned women's shelter. Nora confides to Jiro that her daughter has medical problems and needs antibiotics, but pharmacies have been looted long ago and houses are empty. Gripped by fear and helplessness, Nora goes outside so her daughter won't see her tears. But outside, she faces a new trial. Women on horseback appear in the courtyard, claiming to be the rightful owners of the house and hardly pleased by the arrival of uninvited guests. The rest of the visitors are quickly discovered as well. The horsewomen lead them to the stables to dispose of this extra mouth to feed. However, Nora notices something that could save them. One of the riders is wounded, and Nora asks Jiro to examine the girl and provide aid. Jiro does her best, but the bullet wound is too grave and there is nothing available except adhesive tape and rubber gloves. Hours of improvised surgery bring no improvement. The girl's condition worsens and the leader of the women's band, Roxanne, decides to end her suffering. To Nora's surprise, Roxanne proves kind and understanding. She invites the guests to stay the night in her home and promises to provide the antibiotics Mackenzie needs. As the group follows Roxanne, Jiro realizes the antibiotics are only a small part of what the band controls. They own an entire mall stocked with supplies. Meanwhile, Sarah and Yoro continue their journey toward Boston, hoping to find geneticist Allison Mann. But at the city's edge, they encounter a heavily guarded military checkpoint armed with tear gas. Sarah proposes splitting up. She will distract the soldiers while Yoro and Capucina sneak around the blockade. Upon meeting the Boston colleagues, Sarah quickly realizes that the absence of men has not rid the world of crime. Rebel groups constantly attack Harvard trying to find answers. The plan works. While Sarah keeps the soldiers occupied, Yoro sneaks into the headquarters building to hide. However, there he falls into the hands of rebels, at risk of exposure. But fortunately, they mistake him for a trans person and let him go, even telling him where to find his people, get needed hormones, and hide. Finally, Yoro and Sarah locate Allison Mann's apartment and then her Harvard office. The geneticist is not pleased to see strange visitors, but the moment Yoro removes his mask, she immediately understands why they are there. Yet it is impossible to work at Harvard. There is no equipment or biological samples, so she suggests the only option is to travel to San Francisco to use the lab there. Sarah agrees to undertake another dangerous trip, but secretly sabotages her radio, cutting off her only line of contact with the White House. Later, she uses the radio's malfunction as an excuse to leave and asks Yoro to watch over the geneticist while she finds another way to communicate. Meanwhile, political power struggles resume, but not everyone is focused on them. One of Jennifer Brown's aides, Christine, falls ill and fears she has lost her baby. An ultrasound reveals the opposite. The pregnancy is advancing and it is very possible the child is male. Sarah bursts into a stranger's home and discovers the homeowner is as skilled and dangerous as the secret agent herself. A fight breaks out between the two women, but once they talk, they realize they both work for the same organization and came for the same reason, to find the homeowner and shoot her. Upon learning of the helicopter accident, Jennifer is deeply worried, but Christine tries to calm her. The search team reports they found only 2 pilots' bodies. Relief is short-lived, as the president realizes Sarah most likely orchestrated the crash to eliminate unnecessary witnesses. A terrible thought crosses his mind. His son is in the company of a dangerous criminal, and no one knows what she might do to him. Regina Oliver, the leading presidential candidate, is brought to the White House. Seizing this opportunity,